This week on the video version of the Business of Tech, the FCC's new broadband maps, hiring information on help desks and IT services, new marketplace data, updates on right to repair, job listings and what the words mean, the Teamsters are coming for Amazon, and the security news from the week. Hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get to this week's stories. Let's call this Data Monday. Barracuda's new survey says 85% of MSPs say there's opportunity out there, and 59% have expanded their services in the past 12 months. Most lucrative area? Remote work, then security. A survey by Yellow Brick Data finds only 18% of respondents still have all data warehouses running in an on-premises IT environment. Nearly half, at 47%, said that all their data warehouses were deployed on a public cloud, while just over a third, 35%, are running a mixed environment. But here's where it gets interesting, quoting Smarter MSP. Among the respondents that are running data warehouses in the cloud or in a mixed environment, the survey suggests much more is occurring outside of simply lifting and shifting warehouses into the cloud. While more than half, 54%, identified conventional cloud data warehouses as a key trend for 2021, an almost equal number, 53%, said hybrid or multi-cloud warehouses are also an important trend, even though only 18% have a warehouse in an on-prem IT environment. Just under a third, 28%, said they are considering the data warehousing implications of edge computing for use cases involving either an Internet of Things, mobile, or factory floor application. Nearly half, 48%, also noted they are investing real-time analytics to drive various business processes. So why do we care? Data warehousing is a piece of the data offerings I always mention. You have to have places for data to live. Smarter MSP thinks the opportunity is in managing the data in highly distributed environments. Sure, I just layer on top how to make the data useful, because there's even more value in that. If the lead is anything to do with infrastructure, even of data, it's less valuable. And some staffing data for you. The mean salary of a privacy professional has increased by approximately $6,000 in the past 2 years to $140,529, according to the latest data from the International Association of Privacy Professionals, seemingly showing the value of privacy expertise. CompTIA has released survey data on tech support. Top needs on a help desk are cybersecurity, 70% of respondents, securing networks at 67%, remote work and work from home, another 67%, mobile device issues 60%, and software as a service and cloud, 57%. That matches with the skills required. 76% of respondents cited cybersecurity, followed by software, 71%, network support, 70%, operating system 70%, hardware 69%, cloud SaaS 67%, and mobile devices also 67%. They're generally happy with their help desk. 83% of respondents either completely or mostly satisfied with help desk support. Asked what changes could improve performance, 56% said better ways to access user systems, 49% want better self-support resources, 40% better procedures for hardware issues, and 39% more options for contacting the help desk. And quoting CompTIA directly, artificial intelligence and automation are taking a greater foothold in help desk operations. AI uses include classifying and routing requests, 72% of respondents, chatbots, 56%, finding patterns in tickets, 55%, and curating a knowledge base at 50%. Automation is assisting with status updates, single sign-on, ticket follow-up, resetting password, and asset upgrade notifications. Similarly, a hybrid help desk model combining in-house staff with outside assistance is becoming more common, so routine tasks can be outsourced to free up the internal staff to focus on more complex issues. While 49% of organizations use internal teams exclusively, 46% rely on a combination of internal and external resources. Now, why do we care? As people are quickly becoming more of a scarce resource, know you're competing for the same skills too. You may need to grow them. Wages are up, demands are up, and availability is down. Sure, that's good for outsourcers too. Just remember, you need to be keeping those people. And let's cover the new data on broadband. Last week, the White House released their new mapping tool that shows the gaps in broadband availability across the U.S. This new map uses a lot more data sources, not just the industry-supplied ones. Your quick summary? The data isn't great. There's a big gap in most of the U.S. This new map will help the FCC guide its decision-making process. And I want to highlight the analysis done by the Washington Post on that data, comparing the density of households without any type of computer, including smartphones or broadband access, to how a county voted in 2020. There is a correlation. Red meets red here. So, why do we care? I brought up the political angle to show the link, not get political. There's an inclination to assume that analyzing markets isn't linked to politics. It is. I advise taking some time with those maps and look at the communities you serve. If you're seeing a lot of red on the FCC maps, know that your IT services are being held back. How you act on that is your call. Checkpoint's Global Threat Index is out. Yes, there's a surge of ransomware. Cyber attacks in the Americas are up 70% year over year, 97% in EMEA, and 168% in APAC. TrickBot is the top cyber threat. All this data is for May 2021. So good timing then that the White House has appointed the first cybersecurity director. This happened late last week. Turns out those ransomware payments may be tax deductible in the U.S. The AP has a piece interviewing tax experts, and that's the sentiment. Check with your own team, of course. That's good to know, as a fake dark side gang is out there impersonating the now defunct group in fake extortion emails. Google has unveiled a framework called SALSA, that's Supply Chain Levels for Software Artifacts. It's intended to help prevent supply chain attacks as a way of ensuring software builds are not compromised. Want to learn about another way hackers make their money? Last week was the news of the Electronic Arts breach. Part of how they got in was buying a cookie for $10 to log into an EA Slack. And where does that happen? Genesis Market, a marketplace for criminals to buy and sell services. Mobile is a target. In a global shift to remote work, more than 3/4 of IT decision makers said their organizations were more vulnerable to cyber attacks against mobile devices compared with a year ago, according to a survey by Sapio Research commissioned by Menlo Security. Phishing has been the most common form of attack over the past 12 months, according to 71% of those respondents. The survey showed 73% of IT decision makers believe end users are more susceptible to mobile attacks than they were 5 years ago. More than half of participants said it's impossible for organizations to be ready for all the tactics used by malicious actors targeting mobile devices. For 38% of respondents, it's impossible to keep up with the pace of cyber attacks targeting mobile. New research from SaaS Alerts, too. Their SaaS Application Security Insights report. Businesses average 80 SaaS apps on average, and SaaS Alerts reports an average of 3,000 brute force attacks per day, with top countries of origin as China, Vietnam, Brazil, Russia, India, and Pakistan. Arctic Wolf reports their new data on the ability of small companies to fend off attacks. And unsurprisingly, it's not good. 73% of respondents thought their workforces could not fend off a cyber attack. Just over one-third, 39%, felt overwhelmed by the volume of alerts received from their existing security solutions, and just over half, 55%, say they regularly deprioritize cyber issues in favor of continuing core business activity. And turns out Microsoft's number of vulnerabilities is increasing. Research from Beyond Trust shows that the number has risen by 48% compared to 2019. Now, why do we care? Overall attacks are way up, vulnerabilities are too, everything's a target, and assuming systems in the cloud solves the problem is naive. And people continue to be the biggest risk. Don't get me wrong, solving this is clearly an opportunity, and even more so in the SMB. But it's not a slam dunk, and it's about risk management more than selling products. Those that approach this differently are going to find success, mostly because the same old stuff doesn't work. Canva, the maker of online design and publishing tools, has analyzed the words used in job ads looking for jargon. And shame on you, Washington State, leading the way with abuse of complicated and confusing words and phrases. Leading the way there, cloud first. The most overused term overall is team player. This backs up a study done a few years ago by Textio, which linked jargon as a negative impact to a company's ability to hire in a timely manner with the best candidate. Here's your tidbit: synergy. It's apparently a gateway jargon. Listings with synergy are more likely to contain other jargon terms than those that don't. Now, why do we care? Words matter, and we're an industry that is awful with jargon. It's the impact on hiring I was particularly interested in. There's some value in a shared cultural language, and then there's overdoing it. Language can also be a barrier on those in the diversity front too, driving away those that do not feel like they fit. That's limiting your hiring, and with the power dynamic shifted to the worker, every detail matters. A legislation catch-up, that New York State right to repair bill, it wasn't advanced. It will get revisited in the next session in January. But it might happen at the federal level. A New York congressman has put forth a federal level version. Why do we care? Regulations, law, and law enforcement do not move at the same speed as business. This takes a while. That said, it's the trend. There's more and more of these styles of regulation, so you can see it coming. Slowly. Very, very slowly. Let's revisit workers. DICE released their 2021 Technologist Sentiment Report. 51% of workers are finding it harder to develop and maintain working relationships with colleagues, up from 40% in the second quarter of 2020, while 34% are having difficulty maintaining effective relationships with their managers, compared to 22% in 2020. Overall, 36% of tech workers said they were burned out in the second quarter of 2021, up from 32% in Q4 of 2020. Younger employees are more likely to be experiencing burnout than their older peers, with researchers pointing to differing workloads as a potential factor. 35% of respondents aged 55 and over reported an increase in their workload during the pandemic, compared to nearly half of those between the ages of 18 and 34. Perhaps as a result, the desire to be fully remote dropped from 41% in Q4 2020 to less than a third, 29% in Q2 2021, DICE found, with more respondents showing a preference for a hybrid model of work, combining both at-home and in-office days. As we've been covering, the market is tight. Demand for software developers and software quality assurance analysts and testers will grow between 21 and 26% through 2029, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 4 in 5 businesses are pursuing some kind of initiative to address skills gaps in the tightening market for IT talent, according to data from CompTIA. CompTIA's European Tech Hiring Trends reveals that employer job postings for technology positions totaled 87,000 in Q1 2021 an increase of 9% over Q4 2020 and 40% higher than Q3 2020. The report provides an in-depth look at tech hiring trends in Belgium, Czech Republic, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, and Spain. New business applications jumped 24% in 2020, the biggest surge in history, and they remain at a much higher level than pre-crisis. Gartner is predicting that a third of the global workforce will be at least somewhat remote by the end of the year. They say 32% of all employees worldwide will be working at least 1 day a week remotely by the end of 2021, an increase of 15 points from 2019. The research also predicts that in 2022, 31% of all workers worldwide are expected to work remotely, with the U.S. leading the way at 53% of its total workforce. Google rolled out a tool on Tuesday for employees to request office changes or apply to become remote workers, and the tool will provide them with details of their new compensation adjusted for the local region. The company has also closed its startup space in London, which was designed to support small startup organizations, citing less need. Now, why do we care? Playing out in real time is the transformation of work. Those looking for a single answer will be disappointed because there isn't an obvious one, and the landscape is changing pretty fast. Here's the data we're seeing summarized. Workers will be more in demand and have the power to pick their own direction due to the scarcity. Employers should be redefining the way they use physical space, as Google is clearly doing, and empower them, again as Google shows today. That burnout question is real. How you manage culture is critical because the short-term choices will have long-term ramifications. Now is the time to focus there because that investment will pay off short-term in keeping employees happy and long-term by keeping them with you. The Teamsters are coming for Amazon. The union has said in an official resolution obtained by Vice that unionizing and building worker power at Amazon is a top priority. Quoting Vice, the resolution states the Teamsters plan to create a special Amazon division specifically to aid Amazon workers in unionizing and defending standards in the logistics industry, and they will fully fund the project. Now, why do we care? The Teamsters are coming for Amazon? I would hope that's pretty obvious why we care. Link to that previous story too, showing the changing power of workers. The Teamsters see an opportunity, and you should see the implications. Want to ask, why do we care? T-shirts, stickers, water bottles, and even aprons. Pick up some of our great stuff at the link in the description below and support the show directly. The chip shortage is going to get worse before it gets better. This from multiple CEOs, including John Deere's, Flex, Intel, and AMD's. Estimates vary. 12 to 18 months seems to be the general thinking. About 47,000 small tech companies in the UK are suffering significant financial stress after 18 months of COVID-19 disruption, putting 185,000 jobs at risk. The figures from Business Rescue and Recovery, BGB's Trainer, are for the second quarter of this year and reveal a 41% increase in IT small and medium-sized enterprises in significant financial distress since the first lockdown. And in a clear sign of the state of the U.S., average life expectancy dropped significantly in 2020. Quoting NBC News, between 2018 and 2020, the decrease in average life expectancy at birth in the U.S. was roughly 1.9 years, 8.5 times the average decrease in 16 comparable countries, which was about 2.5 months. The decrease widened the gap between the U.S. and its peers to nearly 5 years, but the difference is much larger among Black and Hispanic Americans. Although life expectancy is expected to increase in 2021, the pandemic will have lasting financial, mental, and physical health consequences that will ripple far beyond 2020. And Accenture posted their revenue forecast up due to digital, cloud, and security services in the shift to hybrid working models. So, why do we care? Now, why did I include life expectancy? Because it's actually a pretty good economic indicator. Healthy economy, healthy people. It's a trailing indicator, but it's useful. I'm cautious about the current state of the market. I think we don't entirely know how it will look nor how it will respond. There's a ton of uncertainty. Employment, configuration of the workplaces, hiring. That's not to say there isn't opportunity, as Accenture shows us. The trick now is to not get over your skis. Solve customer needs. Just know that stability is not assured right now. Those that stay nimble can thrive. Microsoft announced Windows 11 due to release for free this holiday. Here's your highlights. There will be a single annual update per year for Windows 11. Home and Pro editions get 24 months of support, and Enterprise and Education get 36. Business users will be able to upgrade at their own pace. Windows 10 and 11 can be deployed, managed, and used side by side. Microsoft Teams will be integrated into Windows 11 right in the taskbar and Start menu. Android apps will be brought to Windows 11, leveraging Amazon's App Store and Intel's Bridge technology. And developers keep 100% of their revenue if they bring their own commerce engine to the store. Why do we care? Any major OS upgrade is news and valuable for IT services companies. Sure, I'm dismissive of infrastructure because I don't view it alone as the driving force of a growing IT services practice. That doesn't mean it's to be ignored. You really do wish Microsoft would admit that the branding exercise here is to juice PC sales numbers. Making it a feature upgrade, which this rather sounds like, isn't nearly as exciting as a major upgrade. The marketing is going to drive sales. So, go take advantage. Just know it's a sugar high, and that doesn't take away from that sweet taste. SonicWall says they detected 226.3 million attempted ransomware attacks between January and May 2021, which is a 116% increase over the same period. By region, 149% in the US and 69% in the UK. The company also released information about a vulnerability disclosed last year for its firewalls, and it was only partially fixed, and this DOS fix has been updated again to completely fix it. The Clop ransomware is back, despite recent arrests. The gang is listing new victims and have doxed 2 new victims. FBI Director Wray is urging companies to stop paying ransoms to hackers, and per research, 79% of cyber professionals agree. Russia's security chief is indicating that Moscow will work with the US to find hackers with a hope for reciprocity. The National Security Agency showcased their new Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, a rare open collaboration with the private sector. The EU has a new one too, their Joint Cyber Unit, designed to respond to public and private needs. A cohort of cybersecurity companies have signed an open letter to reform the Digital Millennium Copyright Act to resolve issues related to research and disclosure of security issues. Microsoft is warning about a call center ploy to get users to install ransomware. The first step is getting the user to call into a support center where a user is directed to download an infected Excel file, all to keep their service billing set up, and the Excel would theoretically unsubscribe them. Instead, Bazaar Loader is now on their machine. And another new scam? Brushing. Third-party sellers of online shopping platforms set up accounts in a stranger's name and send them products, and use the account to write fake verified reviews to improve their seller rating. And your data is stolen. Criminals are also increasingly using virtual machines in research from Symantec. This approach provides additional cover, reducing likelihood of being discovered early. Hide in a VM, encrypt the host. ConnectWise and Vanson Bourne research cybersecurity challenges for SMBs. Protecting against cybersecurity attacks has fallen from being a top 3 priority in 49% of organizations in 2020 to 44% in 2021. 75% of decision makers agree that their organization is less secure due to added complexity of a remote workforce. Moreover, only 35% of decision makers report their organization is very well protected against remote devices and employees being breached. Only 7% of SMB organizations say they have cybersecurity specific conversations as a matter of course with MSPs, a fall from 13% in 2020. Most SMBs would consider moving to a new IT service provider that has the right solution, and those SMBs are willing to pay on average 34% more for that service provider, the report estimates. Contrasting, JumpCloud's data says IT leaders are upset over the amount of cybersecurity money being spent to support remote work. In their 2021 State of the SME IT Admin report, 60% of respondents said their enterprise was paying, quote, for more tooling than they need to manage user identities, while another 56% said too much was being spent on enabling remote work. Respondents were more split on the top concerns, with 39% referencing software vulnerabilities, 37% expressing concern and reused usernames and passwords, and 36% mentioning unsecured networks. Logarithms data also shows a disconnect. Few InfoSec leaders have a direct voice to the C-suite, showing on average they were 3 levels away from the CEO. Now, why do we care? ConnectWise wants you to believe that the conclusion is that SMBs will pay more for security and will switch because of it. Or is it that SMBs are just accepting this as part of the course of business, just like big companies are? I recently made the argument to not accept the risk that the vendors want you to. What if the customers just want to ignore it? Because they seem to be. JumpCloud and Logarithms data shows it's not an active concern or where customers seem to want to spend their money. ConnectWise's own research tells us that too. It's dropping as a priority, not increasing. I think we're looking for enough security, but not everything security. As I've highlighted here before, taking on security is also taking on risk. Decide how much you actually want to take on if it's your best opportunity. It could well not be, or need to be actually paired and embedded in a more important one, like business solutions. Thanks for tuning in to This Week in the Business of Tech. Shows come out each week, pulling together the daily podcast. If you like this show, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. The content here is possible because of supporters like you. If you want access to shows early, answers to your questions, and private interactions, join our Patreon. It's pay what you want. You decide what the content is worth. Join at patreon.com/MSPradio. Patreons also get access to the written versions of every story as they come out. If you want the stories right away, you can get them on the daily podcast. Find The Business of Tech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. Subscribe links at businessof.tech, and I'll talk to you again next week.